Hello and good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Creating Engaging Experiences Through Gameplay webinar with Elan Lee, the CEO and co-creator of Exploding Kittens. My name is George Bergstrom, and I am the Southwest Regional Coordinator for the Indiana State Library's Professional Development Office. I'll be the question moderator today. We are also happy to announce our co-sponsors for today's webinar, the American Library Association's Games and Gaming Roundtable. I'd like to start off the webinar with a few announcements. To register for other webinars or other trainings available from the Professional Development Office, please see the Indiana State Library's events calendar, which can be found on our website at www.in.gov/library. This session is 1 hour, so you will get 1 LEU for today. If you're watching the archived recording of this webinar, the instructions on how to obtain your LEU are available in the video's description on YouTube. Or you can find those instructions on the Indiana State Library's continuing education site under the LEU policies. I'll now turn the presentation over to Elan.
Thank you. Can everyone hear me okay? George, is it coming through all right?
Yep, I can hear you just fine.
Cool. Excellent. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here. Thanks everyone for taking the time. I hope you're all doing okay with all the storms. I know it's been a little bit nuts out there. What I wanted to do, even before we start, George, I know you said that as people type their questions in chat, you'll kind of find an appropriate place to interrupt. I just want to encourage you to interrupt me constantly. Like, I love for this to be interactive. I love to answer questions as we go. I tend to get very enthusiastic and speak really fast, and I want to make sure I don't miss anything. Plus, if we wait until the very end, you know, the best questions you have are kind of spur of the moment, something that might inspire you. If you wait until the end, I tend to get questions like, you know, what font did you use? And nobody wants to walk away with that as their takeaway. So please, please, please type your questions in. Please interrupt me. I do not mind even a little bit, and we'll take the conversation wherever it goes naturally.
All right, we'll do that.
Sound good? Awesome. Okay, so here we go. I thought today it would be fun to talk about what it means to me to create engaging experiences. I'll do a little sort of quick intro. For those who don't know, my name's Elan. That's me right there. And I co-created a game called Exploding Kittens. This was a game that we started through crowdfunding, but my background has been in games for almost 3 decades now. I was the chief creative officer over at the Xbox, and then decided I needed a little break from screens and putting screens in front of people, and maybe it would be better to do a card game so that people could sit around the table and entertain each other and laugh and recreate some of those really wonderful moments. But in creating a card game, it creates this little problem, which is card games are hard to market. And we needed to get people excited about this game. We needed to get the word out. And one of our best ways to do that is at conferences. And games conferences in particular. And the problem with games conferences is they are loud and they are noisy and they are crowded. And when I say crowded, holy crap, I mean really crowded. And when I say really crowded, like seriously, these things are absolute zoos, and it's very, very hard to get anyone's attention, especially if you're in a position like me where you have a very limited budget. This is typically what a booth looks like. This is about what my budget could afford when we launched the game. A table, a few pictures, someone sitting at a chair and hoping for the best. And the reason I show this picture and have this talk today is because I suspect, please let me know what your thoughts are. I suspect that some of you might be able to relate to this. You have limited resources. You want to be engaging to the people who walk into these libraries, but you don't have a lot to work with. And we had a very, very similar problem. And I wanted to show you one of the ways that we solved it that I am so proud of, that will hopefully be a little bit inspiring and maybe give you some ideas for directions that you could go in yourselves. So look at this booth. We got a table, we've got a few products. The typical interaction is somebody walks up to this booth, they give you money, you give them a game, they walk away. Now they're going to have that transaction hundreds, maybe thousands of times in a day. They're not going to remember me at all. They're not going to remember the interaction. They're not even going to remember the product. I have utterly failed. I have fallen right into the noise of these insane conferences and accomplished nothing. But if you look at that interaction, in a lot of ways, it's recognizable. I thought that reminds me a whole lot of a vending machine, right? Walk up, put in money, push a button, get product, walk away. So if we use vending machine as our basis for what kind of interaction I had to work with, I thought, what if we changed that around a little? What if we made the best version of a vending machine we possibly could? Well, what's the best version? Well, we got to handle some basics, right? The vending machine has to handle inventory management, right? It's got a whole bunch of stuff on display, and it has to be able to deliver those things. It has to be able to handle payment processing, of course. Ideally, it would be interactive. So it's not, at the minimum, it's push a button and get something, but maybe it could do a little bit more. What if it could tell when somebody walked up to it so that it's not constantly trying to be entertaining when nobody's even there? What if it could tell who walked up to it? At these conferences, a lot of people are dressed up as their favorite characters. What if the vending machine could use a little bit of AI and recognize someone and maybe custom create an interaction? Again, this is pie in the sky. This is blue sky brainstorming. What would be, excuse me, what would be the absolute coolest version? We got a little crazier after that and said, what about adaptive reasoning? What if the machine could figure out how to interact with a person based on the actions that the person took? And so it's not just running a script, it's actually making changes to itself. Well, now we're getting very ambitious. So why stop there? Why not put in full AI, machine learning to get better as it goes along? And of course, I looked at this wonderful list of things and looked at my budget, which was about $250. And so I talked to a lot of friends about this, and they all told me I was absolutely nuts. But best I could do was just get to work. Let's see what we can do. There's a lot of stuff that we can buy off the shelf. There's a lot of creativity that we can deploy. Let's see what happens. So we built it. And version 1 was in my garage. I took an old refrigerator cardboard box. I put some buttons on the front. I cut out a little hole, and I said, well, this is basically it. I mean, this is the core of what I'm interested in. And then I thought, well, I need to make this more attractive. So I did a very cheap trick. I just covered the whole thing in fur and made it look like a giant cat. And this vending machine actually does a lot for me. It actually got a lot of the way there. It had all the basics that we needed, right? It's got those buttons there. That's that inventory management system, right? You push a button to tell it what game you want. Okay, cool. It's got that slot right there for payment processing, right? You can put in currency, or you can put in credit cards and it'll handle it from there. It's got this wonderful interactive screen that can display images. And it's kind of there. The images that we displayed on the screen were really fun. I didn't want, because this whole thing looks so Calvin and Hobbes, so held together by duct tape, I thought, what if the images it displayed were not pure digital? What if they looked like signs with little, wooden posts and handwritten messages? And we programmed a lot of these things, right? Like it could tell you the price of an item that looks handwritten. It could say, have a nice day, all kinds of fun stuff. And so it was fun. It was charming. We had a lot of fun building it. It was super cheap. And did it work? Yeah, it really did. Because this thing felt so janky, because it felt so ridiculous, and because it was covered in fur, look at that reaction. We had people come up to this thing and just be charmed and thrilled by this super cheap piece of cardboard covered in fur. And they started to interact with it in a way that we'd never seen before. And then they told their friends about it. And these huge crowds started to form for us. And I'm sure there's a million questions here, well, how could this thing possibly work? How could it actually interact with people? It is just a piece of cardboard and a ridiculous screen. And the answer is we completely cheated. It did a lot of stuff behind the scenes that felt sort of magical. And I say cheating, I'll dive into that a little bit more in a second, but the first bit of cheating and magic that we have to talk about is that button right there. That button says random item, $1. You can see around it is all our games, right? You push the game, you put in money, but random item, $1. Give us $1, we'll give you the vending machine will give you a random item. And when I say random, I mean random. I mean, the thing would spit out, there you can see watermelons and pineapples and plush toys. Here's a whole bunch of people that got asparagus when they pushed random item. It would spit out origami, a hot burrito. There were over 2,000 different objects that this vending machine was capable of spitting out to people when they pushed that $1 random item button. And the rule for everything that we programmed the machine to deliver was that it should never be able to fit in your pocket. That was the rule, because I wanted pictures like this. I wanted this guy walking around with a mop stuck in his backpack. So everybody stops him and says, why is there a mop in your backpack and where did you get it? And he points to the insane Exploding Kittens vending machine, and that's how our crowd grew and grew and grew. Everyone who came up to the machine became a walking advertisement for us, and before we knew it, the crowd got a little bit nuts. So, of course, how did we do that? I'm talking all kinds of big talk about these interactions and these 2,000 random items, and how can you possibly build that for $200? Well, the answer is that cheating I was talking about. This might look like a vending machine, but it was not a vending machine at all. This is actually a vending machine costume. It is completely hollow, and we just filled it with us, with people. Here it is from the other side. This is me standing inside the vending machine. You can see it is nothing but a hollow shell, and we just worked it. We just tried everything we could to make people feel like it was real and funny and interesting. So here's the staff. It took a few people to run. It took one person to look at the people through a little one-way. We put up a screen that we could see out, but nobody could see in. So one person was sort of our spotter. One person was handling all those signs that I talked about. One person was our cashier. One person was the runner who kind of just went back and forth between the front of house where the screen was and the two people in the back who were just making random items all the time. When I say signs to look like they were on sticks with handwritten signs, it's not that they looked like that, it's that they were that. We used popsicle sticks and taped them to little dry erase boards and scribbled "Have a nice day," and we scribbled the price tags on them, and we just held them up one by one to deliver our message out to these customers. This is what it looks like without people. You can see just a ton of inventory as we try to keep people engaged. And charm them so that no matter what happens, there's always something that feels personal, like the machine looks at them, acknowledges them, recognizes them, and then interacts with them. Here's what it looks like with all the people trying to craft all those random items. There is, I hope this is streaming through, there's no sound to this video, so don't worry, but this is what it looks like in full force. We're making balloon animals, we're adding glitter to produce we get in the store. We're trying everything we can to just delight people. And here's what it looks like from the other side. They just see, they got an ear of corn, and more so even than the people that came up to the machine, we started getting these crowds gathering around, sometimes up to 200 people, just watching, just wondering what's going to come up next, what is going to come out of this machine next, and let me go call my friends. Everyone's got to come over and watch this thing. It was a bit of performance art. Again, built for super cheap with zero resources. How can we keep this group of people entertained? Here's the games backstage. Here is, this is one of my favorite pictures. On the first day, we vastly underestimated what the demand was going to be. We ran out of everything immediately. And so we went off to the dollar store, the 99-cent store, and bought them out. Everything, literally every shelf, every item, everything that cost 99 cents, we stuffed in a bag and we bought it. It was no fun to stand in line behind us at the dollar store because this is the things that we put people through. Because like I said, the only option we had was run down the street, buy everything you can. We had no idea this was going to be so popular. Here's some just fun pictures of my team putting googly eyes on lemons, drawing shapes on potatoes. This is ordering a bunch of plungers because plungers were for some reason a crowd favorite. Here is one of our team members bedazzling a banana because why not? We started looking up jokes on the internet. We bought a pool noodle and wrote on it, "What do you call a fake noodle?" And the answer, of course, is an impasta. It was so fun to just play around with people and create these ridiculous items, give them out for $1, and just create that entertainment loop. So, of course, the question: did it do what it was supposed to do? Hell yes. Yes,
I can
please.
almost answer. We have someone, no question, but they wanted to say the experience at the vending machine was fantastic. Her son went through at least 20 times, got a potato, a butterfly net, and all kinds of other stuff.
I love to hear that. Here you can see the line. It wrapped all the way around. We actually got kicked out of most conventions that we brought this to, and it was a problem that we didn't really foresee, which is the crowds got so long. It was about a 2-hour wait to get up to the vending machine at its peak. Sometimes you get lucky and work the line in about 20 minutes. But the crowd got so big that it started blocking all the walkways. It started blocking other people's booths. Eventually, it started blocking the fire lanes. When we took this thing to Comic-Con, the line wrapped around through the whole convention hall, out the door, out the convention center door, and down the street. And eventually, they would just ask us to leave because we're a giant fire hazard. And not our intention, not what we were trying to do, just this weird runaway charming success, this weird magical machine that was delighting people because we had six to eight people backstage running around losing our minds trying to figure out, okay, what do we do next? Okay, we solved that. Okay, now again, what do we do next? What do we do next? The crowds grew and grew and grew. This was this is such a fun picture. Okay, so when your crowd grows that big, you have a problem. You have to get from where you are, like when you have to run to the dollar store, for example, you have to get from outside backstage. And the crowds are so big and they're so dense that we cannot get from where we are backstage because no one will let us through the line. So my friend Jordan had this incredible idea. He took some white gaffer's tape and just wrote lava on the floor, just like that. No one would step on that. That was it. No explanation, no nothing, just wrote lava. Everyone carefully stepped over that little lava pathway, which allowed us to very easily move in and out from backstage whenever we needed to. Love smart people. That was such a good solve. One fun interaction, just so you understand the kind of thing that we did. So for all those Game of Thrones fans out there, this is the Mother of Dragons from Game of Thrones. We would send out little spies to look at the crowd lining up. And sometimes we have like a 2-hour line, so we have a lot of time to say, hey, someone is dressed as the Mother of Dragons, and she's probably about 20 minutes away from the front of the line. Let's get ready. And so what we would do is bedazzle a watermelon to look like a dragon egg. And then when she gets up to the front of the line, she pushes the random item button, puts in $1. 1 second later, a dragon egg comes out and her mind is blown. Like just you watch her brain melt out of her ears because the thing that happened makes no sense. It is absolute magic. She witnessed it in person in front of a crowd of 200 people. And it was an experience that she then goes and posts about and tells all her friends about. We took selfies with stormtroopers. We handed out produce to little kids constantly. Look at this is so good. This kid on the left, he walked up, and all we did was we unrolled 6 rolls of toilet paper at him. We like gave him the end, and we just let him pull and pull and pull until the first one unrolled, and then the second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. Look at the look on his face. He just got 6 unrolled rolls of toilet paper, and it's like the greatest day of his life. It's a very odd thing to be able to deliver that kind of experience for 99 cents. The girl on the right, she walked up with that giant unicorn horn, and we had these little cheap unicorn horns back there. So we just kept pulling her head closer to the machine and just kept putting unicorn horn after unicorn horn on her head until she had a huge collection. And as you can see, it absolutely made her day. This kid walked up dressed as Batman, so he got a banana. We'll zoom in a little bit. It just says banana, na 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 Batman. You get it. Anyway,
Someone's
yeah,
asking how you avoid creativity fatigue.
we swap people. Like there are 6 roles back there at its core. Nobody stays in the same role for more than 20 minutes. So if you need a break, great, go be the cashier for a sec, or go take a break and go walk the conference floor. There's only 3 people responsible for the creativity churn. And so we try to get everybody out of there within 20 minutes because it happens fast. Like once you create a Batman banana, it's going to take you a second to come up with anything that good again. And so we'd rather you have a little bit of a break while your brain cells are recharging. Speaking as the guy who worked, 12-hour shifts in this machine every single day, those shifts became vital. They were just the most important part of this thing. Here you can see these 3 sisters came up and we had we found at the dollar store, we found this selfie stick. So we put one of our phones on it and we decided to take a selfie, which was just so fun. Then we took their phone and took another selfie so that they could have it. Here's a kid we decided to TP. His mom, was such a good sport and actually kept spinning her kid around as we completely mummified him. Look at the look on her face. We're giving her butterfly wings, and she is just having the best day of her life because a weirdo 8 foot tall vending machine is giving her butterfly wings. Like who gets a story like that? Who gets a story to experience that, and back behind the scenes, who gets the story to say we delivered that experience? It was just magical on both sides of it. I was walking around on one of my breaks and saw a little kid with a plunger in one of our games and just had to take a picture because that kind of says it all. This girl, she wrote us a love note. Here is the love note. I won't read it. It was great. She was just in love with this thing. And so we had a dozen roses back there. And so we give out roses. Eventually people started proposing marriage to the machine. So it was really nice. We had red roses back there to give them. It got all over social media. Again, with like zero budget, with anything to play with, the idea that people started taking pictures of this thing and posting about it and doing the advertising work for us was overwhelming. And this is the thing that was trending on Twitter, it was trending on Facebook, it was trending on Instagram, all for a marketing budget of $200. This is just a quick video, but this kind of takes me to the end. I don't want to sit here and talk too long because I'd really rather this be interactive. But we ran this thing for up to 3 days at a time. There were a ton of people backstage, 6 or 8 people backstage, working as hard as they possibly could, trying to just deliver this experience over and over and over again, because we kind of captured something very special. And I like to think of this as someone once told me this is the best vending machine ever built, and I like to think of this as like this is the most magical machine ever built. And it's all because we had a bunch of people who wanted to interact with a much larger group, and we put up a wall of cardboard and fur in between them, and that facilitated the entire interaction. So all of this really is just trying to say, like, you don't need a lot of money, you don't need a lot of resources. What you need is an audience that's looking for something, and you need to figure out how to speak to them in a way that feels like magic. And I hope this shows you there's a bunch of very non-obvious ways to do it. The more creativity you apply to it, sometimes will fail spectacularly, but sometimes will really create an experience that goes far beyond anything you can imagine. And that's it.
All right. Well, thank you very much. I'm going to encourage everyone to start putting some questions in the chat. And while that is happening, my first question is, how many conventions did it get to?
Yes, how
And
many conventions? We ran it right up until COVID essentially shut us down. And we took it to, I think, 6 different conventions. The first one was pretty small. The first one we really didn't know what we were doing. The first one was actually before we even covered the thing in fur, and it went okay. The second one was where most of those pictures are from because it blew up. I mean, it was the biggest thing there. The third one was Comic-Con where we got kicked out. We took it to South by Southwest. It got kicked out. We took it to blanking because now it's been a few years, but yeah, it went out on the road a bunch of times. We're very excited to bring it back out there. Every time we run it, we make some much needed improvements, both for the audience experience and the people who run it. Yeah, we'll probably take it out again this year, probably around the summer.
Cool. So Liz asks, do you have any strategies for getting people to interact before the hype has started?
Before the hype has started. So our best strategy, honestly, was for us, it was make the thing as charming looking as possible. We we had a lot of strategies. We like two people were always supposed to be walking the floor, directing people towards the machine, trying to corral people in. Um, because I thought like we have to do some wrangling in order to get the engine running. We need the first few people to come up, but it turns out we never needed that. What we needed was a giant vending machine covered in fur that looked like a huge cat, and that was all it took. We kind of knew that would be good, but we didn't know that that would completely replace the human element of pulling people in. The moment we pulled the curtain up on that thing, there was a line, and that line never diminished for the entire conference.
So if you're thinking about going out again with it soon, what sort of adjustments have you made because of COVID?
Because of COVID, so well, the first thing is during COVID, we could not take it out at all.
Right.
We could not. Not only were conferences tough, but even today, putting 6 or 8 people in a confined space like that is just not appropriate. So we're just about at the point where we could probably do that again. We need much stronger crowd control and crowd management. And so we need 2 people full time to be managing that now, which is a new one for us. Normally we just let the crowd do whatever they want. Um, and then we had the biggest change, I would say, is in version 1, we always need the equivalent of customer support. Here, I'm gonna share the very first slide again. It's gonna be a bit hard to see, but give me 1 second. I'm gonna show you version 1, which is, where is share? Oh, I have so many windows open to do this. Hold on. This is gonna be good. I promise this is gonna be worth it. Give me 1 second, and this screen. So I'll talk a little bit just as I set this up. In version 1, we had this thing where we knew we needed customer support of some sort. And here we go. So I'm just going to share screen number 3, even though it's not exactly the right way. Okay, so what you can see if you look at this window, I don't know if you can see my mouse, but right around the C in the word creating, there's this, oh, you know what? I can just delete this text. Haha. Okay, right there, there is a tube. It looks like a cat face with a giant open mouth. Is that visible enough? Can you see that?
Yeah.
That was version 1 of customer support. We called it the yell tube. It's a funnel tied to a pool hose, and backstage there was another funnel. And so we would say, if you need help, just scream into that tube, and we would hold the funnel up to our ear, and then we would scream back through our funnel so they could hear it. And it was for things like, oh, I got the wrong change, or I need a receipt, or whatever. We realized that that's probably wildly inappropriate for COVID, is holding your face up to a thing that many hundreds of other people have also stuck their face into. So the new version, which we actually debuted a little bit, it wasn't functioning right, but we finally worked out all the kinks. The new version is there's an old analog telephone, like an old rotary phone, that I bought 2 of them, and I wired them together. I just literally soldered the wires together through a few resistors so that if you pick one up, you can now hear the person on the other one. So we hold out a phone, the phone starts ringing, you pick up the phone, and suddenly you can talk to somebody who works out the problem. That lets us pull the phone back inside, sanitize it, wipe it down. So now we have a much, much cleaner version of customer support when we need it.
Great. Oh, great. Another question. Does your Upstart Kickstarter experience lend to the vibe at your company and thus gamification of the conference experience?
That's a great one. Yeah, we are so we started as a company with 3 people out of my garage, and everything was let's just do it ourselves. Like let's just hold this thing together with duct tape. That is exactly what we're doing at these conventions. But now we have 104 people working at the company, and it gets much harder. But part of my role is really company culture, is to make sure that that startup mentality is still there, that like, look, if there's a fancy way or a sort of garage sale way to do a thing, let's choose the garage sale one. Not because it's cheaper, but because it creates that experience for the users. We always want to be relatable. We always want to make sure that the things we like are the things that our audience has exposure to, because those tend to be the same things. The moment we get fancy or sophisticated, we kind of lose our ability to be relatable to our own audience, and we're just not having as much fun. So it's been very important for us to say, let's keep doing what we're doing despite how much we grow. Like, let's make sure that that culture sticks around, that mentality sticks around.
Yeah. And John says thank you to that, for that answer. Are there any other questions? Oh, here we go. Kara asks, what made you create the library version? Like, so I guess the game that just came out.
Oh, yeah, we tend to make versions based on requests. Like, uh, I really trust our audience. I really love our audience. Every time anyone said, "Hey, I have an idea," and writes to us and says, "Hey, I have an idea. Would you ever consider blah?" More often than not, the answer is sure. Yeah, let's do that. That's where the library version came from. Someone wrote to us and said, I love your game. I play it all the time. And me and my husband, I just got pregnant, but I haven't told him yet. We play your game every night. Can you build a custom deck for me to announce my pregnancy? And we're like, hell yes, we can do that. So we built a deck of cards just for her. And one of the cards was called human cargo, and it showed a picture of her with an X-ray in front of her belly, and there was a little baby inside. And she played the card, which her husband had never seen before, and he stared at it. And she got the whole thing on tape. And just the realization that hits him about what is happening at that moment, delivered through an Exploding Kittens game, it was just, oh, it was so beautiful. Yeah, so I love requests like that. It makes it so much fun for us, because we're not so worried about the expensive stuff like that. We just really like interaction. It's the most fun.
Sure. And Christy asks, was one of the buttons on the vending machine able to buy the card game you were talking about in the beginning?
Yes,
Yeah.
there were 8 buttons. Now there's 16 buttons, but at first there were 8. Every button was just a single purchase, right? So you push the button, and it tells you what game it is and how much it costs. It's now gotten a little bit more complicated. I don't know if you can see behind me, but we have about 20 some odd games now. That's a lot of buttons. So we are currently working on ways to optimize that menu experience. It was so much easier when we had 8 games. Now we have a lot.
Molly asks, do you think the garage sale approach or the more DIY approach makes people want to interact with the setup more?
Absolutely. And I have proof. So this thing was so big that both Microsoft and Google copied it at conventions, and they built very fancy versions, like polished metal and chrome and curves and lasers and digital displays and the whole bit. And they had to have people out front trying to corral people close to the machine to use it, because people just walked by and shrugged, because it was the absolute opposite of interesting.
John asks, if you had to adapt your booth to a smaller staff, like 2 to 3 people, what is something you might change to accommodate a smaller crew?
Um, you can absolutely run it with 2 to 3 people. Absolutely. probably couldn't do it with one. I think you need at least two. But 100% of it is audience expectation. We built for the 8-person version, the expectation that we encouraged was your experience is going to be 5 to 20 seconds long. And we showed them, we demonstrated that over and over and over and over again. Fewer people just means each interaction is going to take you longer, and you just need to be able to broadcast that to your audience so that they're walking up with the expectation of this is going to be a 2-minute experience, and I'm going to have to wait a second while a thing is crafted for me. Maybe you need a fun waiting screen, right? Like, you know, the little pinwheel on a Mac that says something is processing. Maybe you need to create a funny version of that that's going to be up there for 30 or 40 seconds while you work backstage because you have limited staff, but the audience is still going to be entertained. The only thing you can do wrong is let them expect a 30-second experience and then deliver a 2-minute experience.
Great. All right, well, that's all the questions we've got so far, unless somebody is typing.
No problem. If we're waiting, I can show you, here, I'll show you one of my favorite interactions. Here, hold on, let me share my screen again. Excuse me, let's go. Bear with me while I just get to the right place here. Okay, so what I'm gonna do is, actually, I'm gonna fast forward a little. Sorry, I will load this back up in one moment. Here and here, there we go. Okay, one of the things that was really fun about this was we learned very quickly that, as you could see, we went to the dollar store and didn't have enough stuff. So what we learned was that we need constant deliveries of stuff. Going to the dollar store is a losing proposition for us, right? We're buying things for $1, we're selling them for $1. That's not so great. So we needed to buy fruit and vegetables and ridiculous things, roses, at much lower prices. So a very strange fact about Exploding Kittens is we are now a registered grocer in all 50 states. We can buy at extremely low prices watermelons and pineapples and eggplants and all the rest of it just to run this silly little machine. It was very weird getting grocery deliveries at these conventions after hours and needing a guard to open the doors for us. And one of the problems with that is we went to South by Southwest, Texas, hot weather, and the day before the convention, we got everything delivered, but they don't turn on the AC the day before. They only turn it on the day of the convention. So if you have backstage a whole bunch of items like that, one of the things that happens, if you look carefully, you will be able to see, hold on, you'll be able to see a whole bunch of flies floating around our poor booth, which is not fun when you get 8 people back there. All the fruit started to rot. We got fruit flies. You can see some mold started to grow in just 24 hours. This is what happens when you leave a watermelon in those conditions. Yeah, that was fun. Let's see, I'll show you one other ridiculous thing. Here, hold on 1 sec. Where did I put it? Oh, no, not in the slide deck. So I can just talk through this. One of my other favorite stories was we got some really hardcore fans. We had people that would wait in line multiple times to interact with us over and over and over again. And keep in mind, waiting in line each time is somewhere between 20 minutes and 2 hours. So like, this is devotion. And when somebody shows up for the second or third time, we have to make sure we recognize them. We have to make sure we interact with them and treat them as the VIPs that they are, because they are devoting so much time. And so this one person, I do have it. Hold on. Oh, I'm excited to show you this. Okay, this one person, let me share screen one more time. Sorry. Promise this will be worth it. This is a good one. Go. Okay, so this one person came up we didn't know her. It was just a random person, and we decided, you know, what we're gonna do. We're gonna look online and learn balloon art. We had all these balloons. We had no idea what we were doing, so we just started folding up balloons, and we wrote "I am art" on a balloon, and then we handed it out. And she looked at it and she laughed. And here's a picture of literally us watching videos backstage trying to learn how to make balloon animals because none of us know what we're doing. And so we started handing out these like adorable, ridiculous Frankenstein concoctions. But this one woman who we handed one of these things to, she left and she got back in line and she came up again and she pushed random item and excuse me, let me back up a sec. The first time what we wrote was we took just one balloon. We didn't even fold it up. We just wrote snake on it because we thought that was funny. We gave her a snake. So she waited in line again. It was like an hour later. She came back up to the front of the line. She pushed random item. But instead of putting in $1, she pushed in her snake. And I thought, oh, what are we gonna do? Okay. Somebody blow up 2 balloons, and we tied the 2 balloons together, and I wrote bigger snake and pushed that out. And it got a great laugh. It was really funny. Um, and I swear, an hour later, she shows up again and she pushes through bigger snake. And so I said, okay, all hands on deck. We took every balloon we had, like it had to be 3 dozen balloons, tied them all together, you can see, and we pushed them all out and of course wrote the biggest snake. And she had to be a solid 2 minutes pulling this thing out of the vending machine. She had to feed it into the crowd. Other people had to hold it. She walked around with, had to be 30 or 40 balloons tied together trying to deal with the biggest snake. Luckily, she did not come back after that because I have no idea how we would have topped that. Anyway, that's my fun story. I love that one so much.
So Ryan says one of the things he appreciates about EK is that the games are intergenerational. He's played with kids, teens, and elderly patrons. How do you come up with games that are so accessible to a wide audience?
It's really simple, actually. So I grew up playing games, and so I have very strong opinions about which games I like and which ones I don't. And the games that we make all satisfy a single criteria, which is the games are never entertaining. The games make the people playing entertaining. And as long as we can satisfy that one criteria, our games tend to be very intergenerational because that's the most common language we've got. If you are able to interact not with the game is just a tool set to interact with somebody else at the table, and you laugh and you feel betrayed or you feel celebratory or you've just had an interaction of some sort, you are going to celebrate that game. If you look very carefully at Exploding Kittens, every card in that game creates an interaction between 2 players at the table. And it's designed specifically with that in mind so that every time you walk away from that game, when you're finished playing, you think, oh, I really love these people. They're the best. We had the best time together. And sometimes you blame the game, but I don't care about that. What I care about is that you walk away with those endorphins of, I love my friends. I love my family. We just had the greatest time together because the game is trying its best to get out of the way and encourage that.
Great. All right. Are there, it says awesome answer. Are
Glad you
there
like it.
any other questions? Got some agrees. Oh, you mentioned the vending machine being performance art in a way. Could you go into more detail about design of a design of a game versus, or sorry, a game design versus the performance art?
Game design versus performance art design. So performance art design really does have to be entertaining. I can make the claim our games are not entertaining, but performance art really does have to be entertaining. You have to think through like what is the kind of experience that someone is going to have very quickly. Don't make them do any work. The amount of work required in this case was push a button. One button, you're done. That's it. But then you're going to walk away feeling that the world has become an extraordinary version of itself. You had a set of expectations about the way something can behave, and this exceeded those expectations. And it's all cheating, right? Like when I say we delivered that bedazzled watermelon egg, that took 20 minutes to build. There's no magic there. We saw someone who we knew the perfect gift was a watermelon egg, and we're going to spend 20 minutes working on that. But her experience is this magical machine knew who I was. I pushed a button. A second later, I had the perfect item for me. That is not possible. That exceeds her expectations. The world cannot behave that way because that is pure magic. But if you can find ways to cheat that, that's the kind of experience that performance art has to deliver. And so to some extent, you need really two things. You need to figure out the framework by which you're going to interact with people. In our case, push a button, get a thing. And then you have to figure out how you can cheat in order to deliver something that exceeds their expectations. And that cheating doesn't have to be very elaborate. In our case, it was literally like pull a curtain aside and take a peek. That was it. It's just because we never acknowledged that there are people inside this machine, that possibility never entered into people's minds, and therefore the experience was magical instead.
Awesome. Well, at this point, we've got people talking about really loud librarians in the chat. So
Awesome. Really Loud Librarians is another one of those just magical games. And you'll see, for those who haven't tried it, very much delivers on the promise of the game is not entertaining because it's not supposed to be entertaining. The game is supposed to make the people playing entertaining. And it is a game that balances knowledge with frenzy, like a pacing. Knowledge with pacing, and you just have to be good at one of those two things, either be fast or be smart, and it's just this wonderful equalizer between teams. I would like to say it's not what you know, it's how fast you know it, and it's one of my favorite games we've ever made.
great. All right, do you want me to drop the link in the chat?
That'd be amazing. Yes, please.
Okay, so EK is giving away copies to libraries. So if you want one, definitely check out the link to their library program. And I will ask one more time if there's any last questions. I'm getting thank yous for the presentation.
It's my pleasure. I will warn you about that game. It is not, as the title suggests, it is not a quiet game. So use at your own discretion.
Awesome. And while you all are thinking of your last questions and giving us your thanks, I am going to grab the link to the LEU request. So if any library staff here need a certificate for attending today, I would encourage you, once I make the copy of the link, there we go. Encourage you to fill out that request form. And I will stick around. I mean, if there are any other questions. Oh, here we go. How much research did you have to do to make the library game?
A lot. We are a very research heavy company. Games will stay in development for much longer than at most companies. And we honestly, we throw away more games than we publish. So what's really important to me, we have this very, very simple criteria. I'm going to speak about it not in terms of research, but in terms of like prototyping and playing over and over again. And most companies, I have a lot of friends who work at some very big game companies, and they all kind of operate the same way. They'll have people test their games, and then they have this very long questionnaire. How many players, and did you have fun, and what was the best thing, and what was the worst thing, and what thing do you think could improve, and what thing was good but not great, and you know, question. And I think I looked at those questionnaires and thought, look, even if you got the best possible answers for all of these questions, you still might not have a good game. And so our questionnaire is one question long. All it says is, do you want to play again? And when we get 100% yes, which takes a long time, that's when our games are ready.
Wow. Well, that's really cool. Okay, so if there are more questions, please feel free to stick around and drop them in the chat. If not, definitely take a look at the link to the Exploding Kittens giveaway that they are being generous with us about. And if you need the LEU, definitely fill out that form as well. And if you don't have more questions, have a great rest of your day. We'll kind of hang out here for a few more minutes for anyone who does need us.
Thank you so much for all the enthusiasm, everyone. I just opened the chat and I'm seeing this just wall of thanks and praise, and it is very humbling. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you.
Yeah, this was awesome. And yes, the recording, you can stop, yes.